Vision and Prayer by Dylan Thomas. Who are you who is born in the next room so loud to my own, that I can hear the womb opening and the dark run over the ghost, and the drop sun behind the wall thin as a wren's bone? In the birth bloody room unknown to the burn and turn of time, and the heart print of man bows no baptism, but dark alone blessing on the wild child. I must lie still as stone by the wren-bone wall, hearing the moan of the mother hidden, and the shadowed head of pain casting tomorrow like a thorn. And the midwives of miracles sing until the turbulent newborn burns me his name, and his flame and the winged wall is torn by his torrid crown, and the dark thrown from his loin to bright light. When the wren-bone wreathes down on the first dawn, furied by his stream, warms on the kingdom come of the dazzler of heaven, and the splashed mothering maiden who bore him with a bonfire in his mouth, and rocked him like a storm, I shall run lost in sudden terror, and shining from the once hooded room, crying in vain in the cauldron of his kiss, in the spin of the sun, in the spuming cyclone of his wing. For I was lost, who am crying in the man-drenched throne of the first fury of his stream, and the lightnings of adoration back to black silence melt and mourn. For I was lost, who have come to dumbfounding haven, and the finding one and the high noon of his wound blinds my cry. There, crouched bare in the shrine of his blazing breast, I shall waken to the judge-blown bedlam of the uncaged sea-bottom, the cloud climb of the exhaling tomb, and the unbidden dust upsailing with his flame in every grain. O spiral of ascension from the vultured urn of the morning of man, when the land and the born sea praised the sun, the finding one, and upright Adam sang upon origin. O the wings of the children, the woundward flight of the ancient young from the canyons of oblivion, the sky stride of the always slain in battle, the happening of saints to their vision, the world winding home, and the whole pain flows open, and I die. In the name of the lost, who glory in the swinish plains of carrion, under the burial song of the birds of burden, heavy with the drowned and the green dust, and burying the ghost from the ground like pollen on the black plume and the beak of slime, I pray, though I belong not wholly to that lamenting brethren, for joy has moved within the inmost marrow of my heart-bone, that he who learns now the sun and moon of his mother's milk may return before the lips blaze and bloomed to the birth-bloody room behind the wall's wren-bone, and be dumb. And the womb that bore for all men the adored infant light or the dazzling prison yawn to his upcoming. In the name of the wanton lost on the unchristened mountain in the centre of dark, I pray him, that he let the dead lie though they moan for his briared hands to hoist them to the shrine of his world's wound, and the blood drops garden endure the stone-blind host to sleep in the dark and deep rock awake no heartbone, but let it break on the mountain crown, unbidden by the sun, and the beating dust be blown down to the river-rooting plain under the night forever falling. Forever falling night is a known star and country to the legion of sleepers whose tongue I toll, to mourn his deluging light through sea and soil. And we have come to know all places, ways, mazes, passages, quarters and graves of the endless fall. Now common Lazarus of the charting sleepers prays never to awake and arise, for the country of death is the heart's size, and the star of the lost the shape of the eyes. In the name of the fatherless, in the name of the unborn and the undesirers of midwifing morning's hands or instruments, oh, in the name of no one now, or no one to be, I pray. May the crimson sun spin a grave grey, and the colour of clay stream upon his martyrdom in the interpreted evening, and the known dark of the earth. Amen. I turn the corner of prayer and burn in a blessing of the southern sun. In the name of the damned I would turn back and run to the hidden land, but the loud sun christens down the sky. I am found. Oh, let him scold me and drown me in his world's wound. His lightning answers my cry. My voice burns in his hand. Now I am lost in the blinding one. The sun roars at the prayer's end. In the 1589 work, The Art of Poesy by George Puttenham, there's an entire chapter devoted to poems written in geometric or other patterns. We think of this poem by Dylan Thomas as an example of modernist concrete poetry and experimental in that respect. But the poem's in a long tradition. The old metaphysical poets would often cast their verse into visual shapes on the page. A love poem in the shape of a heart being the most pedestrian example of this sort of thing. The poem in two parts, the vision and then the prayer, starts with a question and ends in a roar. If it's intimidating on the page and Thomas's English is dense, it's actually quite straightforward. The situation is that a child is being born in the next room. It's a nativity poem. The poet can hear the birth through the wall as thin as a wren's bone. This occasions the poet to a vision and then to make a prayer. The play of the poem moves somewhat on the S-O-N to the S-U-N, from sun to sun. The vision is cast as a set of 6 lozenges. The corresponding prayer is 6 triquets, or kite shapes. The lozenges expand outwards. The triquets contract inwards to a centre point. The shape of the presentation is not gratuitous and not an empty display of virtuosity. It matches and embodies the movement of the poem exactly. And I count it as a very successful poem in that respect, and very ambitious, but perfectly crafted, with only a few blemishes, I think. I've always balked at the word dazzled, which is made prominent, and perhaps it's the right word there. We can be sure it's the word that Thomas wanted. He must have loved it. It is answered in the second part by the dazzling prison. I'm not sure about the interpreted evening or the happening of saints to their vision. Doesn't contribute much. But how good is the spuming cyclone of his wing? I've always liked the birds of burden, the bird imagery throughout the poem. Fragility, as fragile as a wren's bone. The thematic tension is between the miracle and wonder of birth, the joy of new life, and the stain of original sin. For we are born in blood and pain, and we all end in the grave. The birth of the child is an outward expansion of the world, but the prayer goes inwards as the child is christened by the sun and taken into the light of day. Light and dark imagery, expansion and contraction. The dark thrown from his loins to bright light. It's very solar or almost pagan in its solar symbolism of the prayer, and not overly explicit with Christian religious imagery. It is the sun that does the christening, and the sun roars. The birth is a cosmic event, and not just an event in a Christian redemption narrative, even though he invokes Mother Mary and her child, the womb that bore for all men the adored infant. At the end is the sun. Now I am lost in the blinding one. Biology, the human body, is the sacred temple, the shrine of his blazing breast. Throughout, the imagery of birth and death go hand in hand. The vultured urn of the morning of man. Death is implicit in birth. The urn and vulture are already present. The accomplishment of this synesthesia of birth and death is, I think, what makes the poem a great poem in the English canon. Birth, and the whole pain flows open and I die. The child is born when the whole pain flows open. The poem was quite graphic in some ways, but the poet dies in this entry into mortality. The poet has a vision of all the human race being born thus. The woundward flight of the ancient young from the canyons of oblivion. Vaginal imagery, the wound, the canyon of oblivion. It is a poem about the karmic wheel. The final stanza of the poem is especially successful in its own, I think. But it's important to notice the legion of sleepers whose tongue I toll. The legion of sleepers, the dead, for whom forever falling night is a known country. And so the poem isn't pitched at the rational, linear level of things. alliteration, rhyme, half-rhyme, pun, all the devices of poetry that Thomas loves, prod us at a much deeper level, death and sleep. Despite all the implications of death and pain, the poet's not going to mourn, so the poem goes with the refusal to mourn the death by fire of the child in London, one of his more publicly celebrated poems. It's a refusal to mourn poem. The poet does belong not wholly to that lamenting brethren, for joy has moved within the inmost marrow of my heartbone. There's a painting by Gentile de Fabriano, a nativity. The Christ child radiates with a divine light that illuminates the scene. This poem is about that light. The poem, like all of Thomas's work, is full of wonderful wordplay and striking, arresting and surprising uses of language. You can read it over 100 times, this poem, always finding new delights in every word. I found this poem when I was young, maybe 17. It's a poem that catches your eye. It completely changed my idea of what a poem and language can do. It's a model of craftsmanship. On any reading of Thomas, he makes the English language new, and that is the first duty of any poet, and that is why I still read Dylan Thomas, to make the language new. The themes are not especially new. Thomas is very traditional and not very modern, finally. The form is not exclusively modernist either. George Putnam in 1589 gives us a list of all the weird shapes poems might come in, although this is one of the most accomplished and skillful examples in modern visual poetry, I think. Disciplined and also playful. As some have noted, the very form of the poem might suggest the physiology of birth.